Hello, good morning, everyone. How are you? Now, let me start. So today in session 4, we are going to learn about past perfect tense. To start our session, I will give you an illustration. Let us see. In this illustration, you can see there are two girls. They are chatting. Their names are Monica and Rachel. Let us read Monica's statement. Rachel met me for lunch. She was so happy. She had passed her driving test. So, from this statement, which sequence of event is correct? A or B? Okay, A, Rachel talked to Monica, then she passed her test. Or B, Rachel passed her test, then she talked to Monica. The correct answer is B, Rachel passed her test, then she talked to Monica. Yeah, so Rachel passed her test completely, maybe the day before she met Monica, before she talked to Monica. So from that illustration, we can see past perfect tense is used to describe a completed action of the past that happened before another event took place. Let us see one more example here. After he had finished work, he went straight home. Yes, so he had finished work is a completed action. It happened before he went straight home. Past perfect also can be used to describe an action that happened before specific time in the past. For example, Christine had never been to an opera before last night. Okay, on this slide, we can see the formula of past perfect. For positive sentence, the formula subject, had plus past participle or verb 3. She had finished the test. And for negative, we will use had not and verb 3. She, the subject, had not and the verb 3 finished. She hadn't finished the test. For the interrogative, the formula had and then subject and then past participle. So the interrogative will be, had she finished the test? So when do we use past perfect? Yes, we use past perfect when the speaker is talking about two different events at two different times in the past. One event ends before the second event happened. One event had completed before the second event. Okay, let us see this situation. Jack left his apartment at 2 o'clock. Sue arrived at his apartment at 2:15 and she knocked the door. When Sue arrived, Jack wasn't there. He had left. So we can see that past perfect in here shows that the time relationship between that two events. We use this past perfect had left to say that the first event, Jack leaving his apartment, was completed before the second event, Sue arriving at his apartment, occurred. Okay, let us see the formula of this sentence. The formula, because this is positive sentence, is subject, had, and past participle. Jack had left his apartment when Sue arrived. Yeah, subject Jack, and then had the past participle left. When we use past perfect, we can also use contraction, bentuk singkatnya. For example, I had left. The contraction can be bentuk singkatnya menjadi I left. He had left, he'd left. They had left become they had left, and so on. Jack had left before Sue arrived. Jack had left, and then B, Jack left before Sue arrived. See, Sue arrived after Jack had left, and D, Sue arrived after Jack left. Okay, Now, based from those A, B, C, D sentences, I will discuss a little bit. When before and after are used in a sentence, the time relationship is already clear. The simple past may be used as in B. Jack left before Sue arrived. Yeah, so for example, B and D, Sue arrived after Jack left. We can use past tense. We can use past perfect. Yeah, why we can use past tense? Because, one more time, the time relationship is already clear. Okay, now we are going to practice to identify which action in the past took place first and which action took place second. Let's see number 1 as our example. The tennis player jumped in the air for joy. She had won the match. Nah, the first event is the tennis player won the match, and the second, the tennis player jumped in the air. Let us see number 2. Before I went to bed, I checked the front door. My roommate had already locked it. Which one is number 1? Number 1 is my roommate locked the door, and the second, I checked the door. Number 3, I looked for Diego, but he had left the building. I looked for Diego, but he had left the building. Which one first? Yes, that's right. Diego left the building. And the second, I looked for Diego. Very good. Okay, you can see more example here. Okay, as you have maybe already understand, past perfect tense expresses activity that was completed before another activity on time in the past. The formula is subject, had, and then verb 3. Example A, my parents, the subject, had, and then the verb 3, eaten. My parents had already eaten by the time I got home. Example B, subject I, and then had and the verb 3, heard. Until yesterday, I had never heard about the accident. Actually, and never, the adverb never shows negative meaning. Yeah, it's similar with I had not ever heard about the accident. Example C, the subject somebody and then had and verb 3, forgotten. The thief simply walked in. Somebody had forgotten to lock the door. There are some conjunctions that you commonly use in past perfect tense. Those conjunctions are before, after, until, as soon as, and by the time. Okay, as you know, as we have discussed before, in past perfect, with the formula subject, had, and verb 3. You have already known there are regular and irregular verbs. For the regular verb, the verb 3 can be formed by adding ed. For example, wash, the past participle, washed. Laugh, the past participle, laughed. Promise, the past participle, promise. And then for the irregular, do, the past participle, done. Be, the past participle, been. Eat, the past participle, eaten. See, the past participle, seen. And catch, the past participle, caught. Okay, let us practice to use past perfect and verb 3. Let us see number 1. I was sure that I, blah, 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 the man before. Okay, can you complete the sentence to make good past perfect sentence? Yes, I was sure that I had, what is the verb 3 for C? Seen. I was sure that I had seen the man before. Number 2, what did he say he blah 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 with the money? He, and then subject he followed with had and the verb 3, done. Yeah, he had done. What did he say he had done with the money? Okay, one more. She said she blah 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 everywhere for the precious earrings. Subject she followed with had and verb 3. Okay, because this is regular verb, only add with ed. She had looked. She said she had looked everywhere for the precious earrings. You can practice more examples later on. Now, let us overview again about the formula. For the positive or affirmative sentence, the formula will be subject, had, and verb 3. For example, subject she had, verb 3 wash. She had washed the dishes before we had dinner. Okay, the negative formula for past perfect is subject, had not, and verb 3 or past participle. She had not washed the dishes before we had dinner. And for the interrogative, had, subject, and verb 3. Had she washed the dishes before we had dinner? Okay. Now, can you make the negative and interrogative form of past perfect tense here? Let's try number 1. Tom had his dinner before he went to bed. Do you remember for negative sentence? The formula will be subject, had not, and verb 3. So the negative sentence will be Tom had not had his dinner before he went to bed. Very good. How about the interrogative? The formula is had and then subject and then verb 3. So the interrogative form of past perfect tense for this sentence is had Tom had his dinner before he went to bed? Yes, that's right. You can try number 2 until number 10 later on. Okay, let me start to explain about the difference between the past progressive and the past perfect. Let us see the example here. In A, I was eating when Bob came. The past progressive expresses an activity that was in progress at a particular time in the past. In example A, I began at noon. I began to eat at 12 o'clock. Yeah, and then Bob came at 12 past 10. My meal was in progress when Bob came. Yeah, so I was still eating. Yeah, the eating in progress. I was still eating when Bob came. And then the past perfect expresses an activity that was completed before a particular time in the past. In example B, I had eaten when Bob came. So I finished eating at noon, at 12 o'clock. And then Bob came at 1 p.m. So my meal was completed before Bob came. That's why for this context, we use past perfect. I had eaten when Bob came. Okay. Okay, now we will practice more on using past perfect. In this exercise, you will have to supply not only past perfect, but also simple past tense. Be careful ya. Class began already, blah, 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 by the time I get, blah, 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 there. So I take quietly, blah, 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 a seat in the back. Now, actually, in the sentence, you have the clue by the time. So you will know where we can use past perfect and where we can use simple past. Yes, that's right. We use past perfect in here. Class had begun already by the time I got, simple past. By the time I got there, so I took quietly a seat in the back. Class had already begun by the time I got there, so I quietly took a seat in the back. Okay, number 2. Millions of years ago, dinosaurs roamed, blah, 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 the earth, but they become, blah, 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 extinct by the time, yeah, again, in here we see the clue, by the time humankind first appeared, blah, blah, blah. So millions of years ago, dinosaurs, yes, we use simple past, roamed. Millions of years ago, dinosaurs roamed the earth, but they become, in here, because we have the clue, by the time, we will use past perfect. But they had become extinct by the time humankind first appeared. Millions of years ago, dinosaurs roamed the earth, but they had become extinct by the time humankind first appeared. Okay, you can see more example there. Number 3, 4, you can practice more. Okay, that's all for today. You can practice more, or we can have a discussion on Zoom session. Hopefully this video will be useful. Please forgive me if there are any error or mistake. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.